Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Commissioner Chronicles on the DLF YouTube channel. My name is Nathan Powell, and this is the Commissioner Chronicles, where I go over a specific league format or league rule and, cover it from top to bottom of how to commission it, how to run it. And today we are talking DEVY auctions. That's right, not DEVY drafts. We're going into the DEVY auction sphere for this episode of the Commissioner Chronicles. Going to break down each step of what you need to do as a commissioner to run a DEVY auction. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe to the DLF YouTube channel. It helps us out a lot, and I like it very much. So, first, with the DEVY auctions, the first question is, what's the clock? We've talked about this with the startup auction and several other videos, but most leagues that I'm in do have a slow clock. So there are, live DEVY auctions. I don't think I've ever actually been a part of a live DEVY auction. But there are, for the most part, most DEVY auctions that I've ever seen have been of the slow variety, which means you have to decide what kind of clock you want. Do you want a 12-hour, 14-hour, 18-hour, 24-hour? My answer to that is whatever. In most DEVY leagues that have a DEVY auction, there's also a rookie auction. So whatever you're doing for the rookie auction, I would mirror that for the DEVY auction. There's no reason to, really separate the two unless there's special circumstances. So try and keep things as uniform as possible. If you have an 18-hour clock for the rookie auction, keep an 18-hour clock for the DEVY auction, and that will be good for you. And then, obviously, when you're doing a clock like that, I highly advocate for the clock resetting when a high bidder changes, not when a high bid changes. But also, and not just like, oh, this 24-hour or 18-hour clock, and then once it's 18 hours up, it's gone. So the time usually for most of these auctions reset when the high bidder changes. Next thing, DEVY auctions are often the last auction for a league, especially when in leagues that have like one currency of a rookie, DEVY, free agent, whatever it may be. And so it's important to be on top of your game as commissioner as far as trades. Now, there is a bit of a cheat code for commissioners on myfantasyleague.com. You can make the auction funds, the funds that you use for auction, the same as blind bid funds during the auctions. And then people can use trading of the blind bid function in order to trade money. And instead of having to wait for you to update that money, they are able to, use it or retrade it or whatever they want to do with that money. They can do it instantly if you have it set as your blind bid dollars are set as your auction dollars. And I advocate for that during auctions, especially, but also throughout the off season, just as an easy way to do trades without having too much commish work. Now, one of the more hot topics in the DEVY auction, community is DEVY spots. The question is to DEVY spot or to not DEVY spot. So what is a DEVY spot, you might ask? A DEVY spot essentially is a DEVY pick, and a DEVY spot in a league that has DEVY spots, it basically guarantees you one DEVY player. If you have one DEVY spot, you will leave the auction with one DEVY player, assuming you don't make any trades. If you have three DEVY spots, you will leave the auction with three DEVY players if you don't make any trades. So DEVY spots do kind of, provide a bit of a safety net for people that, okay, if I have these spots, I'm guaranteed to get this many players. And typically, obviously, your number of DEVY spots would equal the number of players that you want to be sold in the auction. So, for example, a very common format is a 12-teamer. Each team starts with 3 DEVY spots. That means 36, so 3 rounds of picks, essentially. And so if you make trades, not every team's going to have 3 DEVY spots. Some teams will have 4, 5, 6, and some teams will have 0, 1, 2. In terms of DEVY spots, I think that they are a bit of a safety net, but also they do allow for a different currency. So, I am a fan of having some different currencies, and a DEVY spot just adds it. So you can have a future pick, a future player, a DEVY spot, DEVY money, rookie money. Like, there's all these different things that you can trade. Like, if one person doesn't like DEVY spots, they can trade those DEVY spots for rookie picks. If they don't like DEVY spots, they can trade their DEVY spots for veterans, whatever it may be. And so that's just another form of currency that makes things a little bit more interesting. One, complaint I might have about DEVY spots is I think as a player, I think that the perception of the value of a DEVY spot is one of the largest gaps in all of fantasy football, in all of, assets in Dynasty fantasy football, is that for those that don't know what a DEVY spot is, I think they often undervalue it. And maybe even people who do know what a DEVY spot is might sometimes overvalue it. So that can cause some discrepancies in terms of value, in terms of trades being made with that. I actually kind of prefer no DEVY spots, even though I do like the concept of the currency of the DEVY spot. I like, hey, if you have the most money, get as many players as you want. That's what I like about no DEVY spots. If you have the most money, you can you get which players you want, and there's no restriction of, like, the auction format is all about, do I want studs and duds? Do I want the top guy, or do I want 3 middle guys? Like, if you don't have DEVY spots, that's more of an option for you. If there's DEVY spots, yes, there's a way to maneuver around doing a similar thing. But the auction format is built around, you have this money, you can do whatever you want with it, and DEVY spots do infringe upon that a little bit because they restrict you to a certain number, rather than if there's no DEVY spots, you can pick as many players, or win as many players as your budget will allow. Now, next is the nomination process. A lot of leagues do this differently. I personally do all of my nominations pre-DEVY auction. So I will set up a spreadsheet, and I have numerous leagues that have different concepts of DEVY nominations. But in my DEVY auctions, all the DEVY nominations are done before the auction. So you put all the teams that have whether it's DEVY spots or no DEVY spots, but all the teams that can bid on DEVY players in a spreadsheet, and you say, okay, hey, you have 3 and nominations are usually allocated by each team has the same, or in some instances, if you don't have a prerequisite minimum amount of money, your DEVY nominations then get spread out to others. Or if you have $0, your DEVY nomination gets spread out to others. If in a general concept, if nobody loses their DEVY nominations, each team gets the same amount of nominations, and then from there, there's different ways that people go about it. Either people do it in an order and say, okay, we're going to go from top to bottom, either top most money to least money, or least money to most money, whatever it may be. There's an order of how you're doing nominations. And for me, I advocate for going least to most money, because in all of fantasy football, information is power. And you want to give the teams that have the most money the power to have that information, that they know, okay, all these people who have less money, they nominate these players. Okay, I want to make sure I have this player and this player and this player. I advocate for, if you're doing a nomination order, going from least money to most money to give the teams with the higher amount of money the advantage there. If you're not doing a nomination order, there's one very important thing, especially if you're doing it on a spreadsheet, is you have to tell people there's no nomination order. There is no changing your nominations. Once a player is put on the nomination sheet, you can't change it. Because, for example, if I put Tank Bigsby as my nomination the minute the nominations start, then if nominations end in 2 days and everyone's like, okay, Nathan nominated Tank Bigsby, and then 2 days later, at the last second I changed my nomination, everyone's like, well, I would have nominated Tank Bigsby if I knew he wasn't nominated. So you have to keep their nominations the same as soon as you put them on there. I usually, when there's no nomination order, I typically say, okay, everyone, you have 48 hours to put your nominations on the board. If you don't put them on the board, I'll put them on for you, or I'll put them on by DLF rankings, or whatever it may be. You have to come up with some rule if they don't put up their nominations in the event that happens. But I typically just say I'm going to do it just because it makes it easier. There's also the alternative if you don't want to give, kind of show your cards a little bit. Ryan McDowell does send an email. He does things a little bit differently. He sends an email prior to all his DEVY auctions that says, hey, if there's a player you might be interested in nominating during the DEVY auction, like, basically give me your list of players you're interested in nominating. And then he puts most or all of those onto MFL to be able to be nominated. One risk of that is that player, like, yes, you're in a DEVY spot league, you're monitoring those things closely, but you do want to make sure that you're not going over the amount of players you want to nominate for the entire league. So if there's like 40, 50 players on the list that came in and you're only nominating 36, you got to kind of make sure that people aren't going over that 36 number, whether it's in DEVY spots or no DEVY spots at all. As far as nominations pre-draft, you can either collect them via email, collect them on the spreadsheet. And obviously, if you do them via email, it's not as concrete because it's like, okay, there's a much more broad list to select from. Now, nominations during the auction. This is one I've seen 2 different ways. And I don't hate the alternative of what I've seen that isn't the way I do it. The way I do it is the same thing as a rookie auction, same thing as a free agency auction. It is, okay, here's this 24-hour period. You have to nominate 1 player per day. If you don't nominate that player, then I will make a nomination for you. Or if you don't nominate the player, you are forfeiting all bidding rights. And So you make that rule, and you make people nominate once per day or however many times per day, and that goes over the course of the period. So one common thing I do is that I have a league that has 36 nominations, and basically each person must nominate one per day for 3 days. And if anybody runs out of money and doesn't end up making their nominations, then on the fourth day, the reigning players to fill the amount of DEVY players that are in the league get nominated. The alternative to basically the nominations being any time of the day from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, you have the throw them up all on the board theory. And this might actually be the more fair way of doing things. There's a lot of strategy involved in all auctions, and that can be a positive and a negative, but there can be like strategy and like waiting until the last second to make your nomination, waiting until like the middle of the day to make your nomination. Those are strategies I like to implement. That's why I don't do the whole throw all the players up at once, whether it's all the players for that day, the commission manually putting all 12 all up at once. Or I've even seen it where, okay, there's 28 players in this DEVY auction. They're all going up on the board at 9 p.m. on Tuesday, and then players can just bid from there. So I like the concept of the strategy of when to nominate, when to bid, and all those things. And I think that should be kept in DEVY auctions. But I think that a possibly more fair option is just throwing them all up at once and not having to rely on, when is this guy going to make his nomination because I want to bid on this specific player. And lastly, like I talked about, DEVY auctions are often one of the last auctions you have in an off season when it's like June, July. And so then you have to talk about money left over. This is the case in all auction leagues, whether it's rookie auction league or rookie and DEVY or rookie DEVY free agent. What do you do with money left over? So there's really three main schools of thought. There is one, the money is gone. Money doesn't roll over. Money doesn't go anywhere. Once it's gone, it's gone. Two, money that not spent gets turned into blind bid dollars. So if you have $5 left over, you start with $5 more than you would have in your blind bid account. And then three, the bankroll type format where your money rolls over year to year. That can be bankroll of everything, like a capitalist pigs type league, or even bankroll of like rookie and DEVY dollars. So if you have money left over, make sure that you as a commissioner communicate. And I've commissioned several DEVY leagues, and every year I get several DEVY leagues and several auction leagues every year, and I get the same question. Does the money roll over? Does the money roll over? Make sure to communicate the money does not roll over, because that can severely impact the strategy involved of a DEVY auction. So once again, clock, make it remain consistent with other auctions. Trading, use the blind bid trading format, connect it with auction dollars. DEVY spots, yes or no, that's really your own game. DEVY spots probably implements a little bit more strategy, but I think it does take a little bit of the auction format of do what you want with your money away. Nominations, you can do them before, you can do them during, but you do want to get that information before the auction so the commissioner can put some of the players into the software. In nomination order, you can use that in order to put the players onto your spreadsheet or the list of players that are available for the auction. And nominations during the auction, players will just send a list early and be able to nominate as they want. That'll wrap us up for the DEVY auction episode of Commissioner Chronicles. Once again, like this video and subscribe to YouTube. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you guys next time.